Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 48 hours ago, the world watched in horror as Iran launched over 350 drones and missiles at our friend and ally, Israel. For years, Iran has been threatening Israel and amassing a terrifying arsenal of missiles and drones. No one should have had any doubt that one day Iran would try to fulfill its long-standing threat, death to Israel. Were it not for close coordination between Israel, the United States, and other partners to successfully intercept these weapons, Israel and other countries in the region could have faced significant casualties and major damage. That's why we are, in this extraordinary set of circumstances, waiving regular order and to act swiftly and strongly to condemn Iran's brazen attack and take action on other urgent legislation. Over the past 7 months, we've seen Iran's poisonous influence rip apart the Middle East. Iran-backed Hamas launched the massive, unprovoked October 7th attack on Israel that killed over 1,200 people. Hezbollah has fired thousands of rockets, mortars, and missiles into Israel. Iran-backed militias have launched over 170 attacks on American troops in the Middle East, and the Iran-backed Houthis have launched over 100 missiles and drone attacks on global shipping. We need to stand shoulder to shoulder with our friend and ally, Israel. HRES 113 makes a simple, clear statement that we stand with Israel and we support Israel's right to defend itself and to restore deterrence, including by responding to this attack as appropriate. And it also makes clear that our long-standing commitment to Israel's security, including through arms sales and security assistance, is ironclad. Finally, it urges full enforcement of all of our sanctions against Iran and its proxies. Regarding H.R. 4691, the Iran Sanctions Relief Review Act, the Biden administration entered into office committed to pursuing a new nuclear deal with Iran. The Biden administration pursued negotiations with Iran even after it was clear that Iran was dragging its feet and taking advantage of the administration's blind commitments to negotiations for the sake of negotiations. My colleagues and I have been gravely concerned that this administration would lift a combination of our Iran's sanctions in exchange for flimsy limitations on Iran's nuclear program with minimal enforcement mechanisms. That's why this legislation keeps the administration from lifting sanctions without oversight from Congress. This bill requires the President to report to Congress on any plans to terminate or to waive sanctions on Iran and to codify a process for Congress to conduct oversight of these proposed waivers or terminations. I'm also here to support H.R. 5947, which eliminates several waivers and waiver authorities in our Iran sanctions. After this weekend, we need to ask ourselves how a regime that has been subject to international sanctions for decades has the resources to develop such advanced weaponry and what more we can do to choke off their arsenal. Time and again, this body has allowed itself to accept the fiction that can give Iran access to funds for limited use on allegedly humanitarian transactions without enabling the regime's malign activities. Money is fungible. An Iranian regime does not care about its people, as evidenced by their widespread human rights abuses and repression. Every dollar that we provide the Iranian regime, even if purportedly for purchases of agricultural equipment or other humanitarian uses, frees up another dollar that Iran's regime will spend on missiles, drones, its nuclear program, or its terrorist proxies. Additionally, Iran is incredibly skilled at illicit finance and sanctions evasion, including falsifying humanitarian purchases, yet we continue to allow sanction waivers under these pretenses anyway. Enough is enough. With this bill, we are eliminating the sanctions waivers tied to the $6 billion in Iranian funds in restricted accounts in Qatar and tied to the $10 billion Iran has received from Iraq in electricity payments. It's too dangerous to allow Iran to continued access to these funds, even with the nominal restrictions. And finally, this week, The House will also consider H.R. 6046. In the last 10 years, the Iran-backed Houthis have undertaken the violent takeover of Yemen's capital. Years of civil war, wide-scale repression of Yemeni civilians, and hundreds of cross-border attacks on Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. The Biden administration made a grievous error in 2021 when it removed the Trump administration's terrorist designations on the Houthis, even though the Houthis had not changed their behaviors. Removing these designations with no consequences emboldened the Houthis even further, and the Houthis' terrorist activities reached new heights after Hamas's October 7, 2023 terror attack on Israel. Since then, the Houthis, with the support of Iran, have undertaken a deadly campaign of over 100 missiles and drone attacks on global shipping in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. These attacks are a serious threat to the global economy. We need to fully designate the Houthis as a terrorist organization to ensure that all forms of support to the Houthis are subject to sanctions or criminal penalties. The Biden administration has reimposed one terrorist designation, the SDGT, albeit with substantial carve-outs, but the FTO designation has not been reimposed. The stakes are too high for Congress to wait any longer for this administration to act, and that is why this bill directs the Secretary to redesignate the Houthis as an FTO with no exceptions and no carve-outs. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.